that's a commitment that we made to British Columbians, and we're going to deliver on that. And I understand that the Prime Minister, now the actual Prime Minister, not the Prime Minister-elect, has held his first cabinet meeting and has announced his intention to scrap the carbon tax. I want to let British Columbians know we have been working on a law in our province to eliminate the carbon tax here in BC. Our commitment was, once the federal government removed the backstop that required us to have it, we would get rid of it too. And that work is well underway, and we will be ending the carbon tax here in British Columbia. That is to ensure a couple of things. One is to make sure that we're supporting families. The tariff impacts are on top of the impacts of global inflation. With the low Canadian dollar, people have less money to go around. This will support them with that. But also I want to reassure people that we'll be making sure that the big polluters continue to pay, not because we want them to have to be taxed, but to instead encourage them to adopt the technologies that reduce emissions to ensure we're continuing to make progress on the fight against climate change. Happy to take any questions that people may have.
Thank you. We're going to go first to media in the room and then to folks on the phone lines. Folks on the phone lines, please press *1 to be put into the queue. We're going to start with one question and one follow-up. Michelle from CBC.
Hi, thank you. What is the mechanism to remove the carbon tax in BC? Why can't it be done by end of day?
The carbon tax is in legislation, it's in laws in British Columbia, which means they have to be repealed with specific laws. So we have to introduce and pass those laws in the legislature.
And there have been warnings that if BC starts tolling trucks going to Alaska, it could result in reciprocal tolls on trucks traveling through the U.S., bringing items to us from Mexico. And in Alaska, Senator Dan Sullivan has suggested he would lobby to have cruise ships bypass BC. Given those warnings, are you comfortable putting tolls on the table? And what are the specific circumstances under which you'd put them in place?
Well, let's be honest with ourselves. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, is threatening to use economic force to annex our country as the 51st state. He's threatening to come after our water. He's threatening to redraw our borders. I understand that Alaskans might feel anxious about the idea of an additional charge on trucks going from Washington state to Alaska. But we need Alaskans to send the message to Donald Trump about how intertwined we are, about the connections between our economies, that we built the Alaska Highway together. And I hope very much that the elected Republicans in Alaska are sending that message to the president, because you can see very quickly how destructive a trade war is. It's not worth it for anybody. And we don't want to use this tool. We like Alaskans. We think they're great. We like Americans. We think they're great. They've just got a lousy president. And so we want them to step up and send the message to the president, look, you're tanking the U.S. economy. You're destroying consumer confidence. You've wiped out trillions of dollars of value in the stock market. Can you stop already and focus on the priorities that we all have of increasing prosperity and reducing costs? And Team Canada is there when the Americans are ready for that.
All right. Next, we'll go to CJ from Sonja TV.
Thank you. Hello, Premier. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you.
Welcome to Surrey. Good to see you as well.
Good to see Santa TV here.
Yeah, thank you. And a strong BC and strong Canada, the one voice with all the premiers. And my question is, good to know. We have to be together. We have to band together to fight this guy across the border. And having said that, you know, the pipeline issue, now the big voice here going from all the way from Alberta to all the way to Ontario and Quebec. Sometimes Premier Daniel Smith of Alberta sings different song than other premiers. What is your take on that?
Well, we're working hard with Alberta to find areas where we can cooperate and support each other. We signed an agreement with them recently that we're going to cooperate on ensuring that we're minimizing friction for companies that work on both sides of the Alberta and BC border. We're going to work together on electricity. so that we're able to redirect electricity from the United States to Alberta to support them in reducing their emissions and reducing costs for Albertans, and also, incidentally, reducing costs for British Columbians because they produce more wind and solar energy than they need at certain points, so they're willing to sell it back to us at reduced rates, so it's a win-win. These are the kinds of cooperative pieces we're looking at. We're also working together on hydrogen, being able to ship it by rail with the federal government to make sure that we're able to access low carbon technology. So there's lots we have in common. There are points of difference. Premier Smith is a strong advocate for heavy oil pipelines. We're profoundly concerned about the impact of heavy oil pipelines on our pristine coast. But by not focusing on the differences, instead focusing on what we have in common, we think we can make huge progress, and in fact we are with Alberta.
Thank you, Premier. And it's a bit of different question, because when you say all the provincial boundaries will come down and inter-provincial business will be promoted, how about the professional designations like nurses, doctors, professionals like real estate? Is everything will come down, or the designation, or is just a goods and services?
Yeah, so our goal is that if you produce something in British Columbia, you're able to sell it without friction anywhere in Canada. If it's good enough for BC, it's good enough for anywhere else in Canada. And the same for the rest of Canada. If you produce something in some other part of Canada, in Quebec, you're able to sell it in BC without any additional process. And our bill has two parts. It's those goods, but it's also the services. If you're a professional that's able to do a certain job in another province, we want you to be able to do that here. If you've got a skilled trade that is recognized with a designation in another province, we want you to be able to do that here in British Columbia. That's why our bill that's going to be in front of the House has two parts. It has recognizing goods and recognizing services. Now, there's some important work we have to do with the other provinces. So, for example, it sounds a bit technical, but dental hygienists in Alberta can administer anesthesia when someone's undergoing a procedure. In British Columbia, they can't. So the Albertans are like, we'd love to have your dental hygienists work here, but they have to do that extra anesthesia training. And so we'll just deal with those exceptions, but the rule will be, if you've got a skill that's recognized in another province, you can use it here in British Columbia.
Next, we'll go to Lauren Collins from Black Press.
Hi, so my question is, why is BC getting rid of the tax entirely, and how can this be reconciled with the deficit?
So the work is happening right now within the Ministry of Finance to ensure that we're able to accommodate this commitment within the budget. That work is underway. And the commitment that we made to British Columbians is that the tax that we collected would be remitted back to them. So there is a consequence of this decision, and it's a significant one for many families. If they would have received what was called the CATC, it was a carbon tax rebate check from the provincial government. They will not be receiving that check anymore, and the province won't be collecting the carbon tax that paid for those checks. And so this was something that we campaigned on during the election. If the federal government removed the carbon tax requirement, that we would remove the carbon tax here in BC, knowing that would also have that impact on carbon tax rebate checks that are sent out to British Columbians.
Lauren with follow-up.
And then what is the mechanism for additional taxes on big polluters?
So we have something called output-based pricing, which means that, and it's industry-specific, so there's a concrete one, there's a mining one, there's an oil and gas one, and what it does is it recognizes that different industries have different capacity to reduce their emissions with the technologies we have, and it puts a price on carbon that encourages them to adopt those technologies without creating such a burden that all of a sudden people are importing concrete from Indonesia that's high carbon, and that takes a huge amount of carbon to ship here because it's cheaper than producing the concrete here in British Columbia. So it's a bit of a balance. We engage in with industry. We went through a lengthy process with them. We are not removing the output-based pricing system. We want to continue to send that signal to industry that we want them to adopt these technologies to reduce pollution in our province.
Next, we'll go to the phones. Just a reminder for media on the line, when you're called upon, to remember to unmute yourself. We're going to Aaron MacArthur from Global News.
Premier, we've seen with other provinces, Doug Ford in particular, who went forward with the surcharge of electricity and then had to promptly back off. You've gone ahead with a plan to toll Alaska trucks. promptly met with pushback from Alaska. You say you have these levers to fight this trade war. Do you really? Are we not in an incredibly weak position here?
Just to correct you, the legislation doesn't impose the charge. It gives us the ability to do it. And one of the things that I encouraged Doug Ford in Ontario was don't go it alone. Let's work together as a unified front against Canada. We are not as strong if we don't stand together. And so if he puts a surcharge on electricity, for Donald Trump to say, oh, I'm going to double the tariff on your steel firms, that's a big deal for Ontario. This would be a big deal for us if the Alaskans retaliated and encouraged the president to have the cruise ships not stop and so on. So what we're doing is we're making sure that we have all of the tools in place as part of a coordinated effort in the event that Donald Trump takes the dramatic step of putting a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods across the border, or some other draconian and terrible and short-sighted and foolish thing to do, whatever he wakes up in the morning and issues some executive order about, that we have these tools in place. This is not something that we would do lightly. We know the consequences for Alaskans are a big deal. We would expect them to respond in kind. Trade wars only hurt people. They don't benefit anybody. This is our message to Donald Trump. This is our message to all Americans. We don't want this fight. We didn't sign up for it, but that doesn't mean we're not going to arm ourselves.
Aaron, do you have a follow-up?
On that, if nobody wants the trade war, there are some countries, Mexico, Great Britain, that have not retaliated in terms of aluminum and steel. Is there any sense in this Team Canada approach that we calm the situation, reduce our retaliation to try to improve the lives of Canadians and British Columbians?
I think there are lots of different theories of the case about how we deal with the President of the United States and his whims on this trade war. I have heard, the best thing to do is to, go down there, show a lot of deference, kiss the ring, give the President a big win, and then he'll back off. Well, guess what? All of that happened. The federal government went down to Mar-a-Lago. They had dinner at the golf course. They said, okay, absolutely, fentanyl, we're going to do that. They appointed a fentanyl czar. They spent $1.5 billion at the border. They leased helicopters and drones and deployed them along the border. And guess what happened? The 25% tariff still came in. And so there are lots of theories, and we have a Team Canada approach. I would say Premier Smith has been engaging in a good cop approach. She's been down there in the United States, meeting with people. Doug Ford has been aggressive on the front lines, pushing back. All different kinds of approaches are being taken. I would say that they have all been singularly ineffective because the president wants to impose the tariffs, and he wants to annex Canada, and he wants our water, and he wants Greenland, and he wants the Panama Canal. And the idea of logic with someone who wakes up and takes this approach and tanks his own economy in the face of the outcry from the American people that now feel the lowest consumer confidence since 2022 is very hard to negotiate with.
Next, we'll go to Vaughn Palmer from the Vancouver Sun.
Good afternoon, Premier. Getting rid of the carbon tax here in BC is going to take legislation from what you've said. The House doesn't sit again till March 31st. Does that mean the carbon tax will be in place for at least a few days in April until the legislation is passed?
As soon as the legislation is implemented, Vaughn, the Ministry of Finance incorporates that into the budget. The legislation avoiding the April 1st increase will be in place to ensure that that's there. We have been preparing for, and we will introduce the legislation to eliminate the carbon tax in British Columbia, and we'll work with the federal government on the timing of their measures. Obviously, this happened this afternoon, and we've got some work to do with them on their timing to make sure we're all in line. But we will make good on our commitment to British Columbians to get rid of the consumer carbon tax here in BC.
Vaughn for a follow-up.
Yeah, I just would say that from what you've said, the earliest you can introduce the legislation is when the House sits on March 31st, or are you planning to call the House back early?
No, we won't be calling the House back early, Vaughn, but we will be working with the federal government, and we are preparing legislation to eliminate the carbon tax in BC.
Okay, next we'll go to Penny Daflos from CTV. Penny? Oh,
Hi, I hope you can hear me now.
Yep, we can.
Thank you so much. Premier, you mentioned that Danielle Smith is playing good cop. I'm just wondering if, judging from your language, if you see yourself as a bad cop.
Well, I would say I'm probably closer to the Doug Ford end of the spectrum in terms of the Team Canada approach, but I would love for us to be able to sit down with the Americans and reach some kind of path forward on this. I have absolutely no desire to impose these kinds of measures that will hurt Americans, that will hurt British Columbians, just like the American measures hurt British Columbians and hurt Americans. I would much rather be around a table with the Americans trying to work on whatever it is that they're concerned about. I just don't see a lot of prospect of that right now.
last question will go to Penny for a follow-up.
I wonder if you've had an opportunity to speak with Prime Minister Carney yet. If not, when you expect to do that, and then how big of a role you expect him to play in charting a path forward on these tariffs, considering we could be having a federal election called at any time. I mean, are the premiers really leaning on each other more at this point than looking towards the feds for maybe the next month or two?
Yes, we've had great instability at the federal level. It's hurt us in terms of our ability to respond as an integrated whole as a country to the tariff threat from the United States. I think people like Dom LeBlanc and Melanie Joly, they've done the best they could in the circumstances, but what we need is the Prime Minister to be in place, the government to be in place, the Parliament to be sitting, and those things have not been the situation. So I have spoken to Prime Minister Carney, then he was Prime Minister-elect, and I have encouraged him to move as quickly as possible to get stability into the federal government so that we can have a consistent response to the federal Parliament, can be a key partner with our legislature here in BC in supporting British Columbians, and that's what Canadians need right now.
Thank you, folks. That concludes today's event.
Thanks very much, everybody.